Hello, fellow hobby nerd. In this video, we are talking about motivation, motivational hacks and whatnot. Just some thoughts I've had about motivating oneself to do the Warhammer hobby, or potentially in a more general sense, any kind of recreational activity for which one wants to do, but sometimes has issues actually motivating oneself to get it done, to do something. So of course this is in the context of my war on hobby piles of shame, because of course, like many of us in the hobby, I do have big old collection of models and whatnot that I paid for, and I want to paint, want to build, but haven't done it, just can't be bothered. And so there's this thing, well, how do you motivate if you're having motivational issues? How do you motivate yourself to do it? So that's what this video is about. And the thing is, it shouldn't be about this actually, because this is in the context of my war on hobby piles of shame. And in this war, I had elected to do a motivational trick called a hobby streak, and I probably won't explain what a hobby streak is. You'll just have to sort of know, but I have got other videos about it, and if you check the first video of the War on Hobby Piles of Shame playlist, it will explain what a hobby streak is. But I'm not, you're probably, if you're watching this, you probably know what it is and you know how it works. And the idea is, with a hobby streak, it's just a motivational thing, and this ought to be an update. This video ought to be an update on what I did in week 8 and even week 7, because I missed week 7 as well. And so that's kind of what this video is about. This video is about the fact that I have already kind of bailed or failed. Let's use that ugly word, failed. Yeah, I failed my hobby streak. And there's a pretty good reason why it happened, and it is got me thinking about, actually, what is the right way to motivate me, because we're all a bit different, and I think my brain works a little bit differently than a lot of people, and I'll explain we'll get into that later. But the point is, what I should have been, this video should be me updating you on what I did in week 7 and week 8. But in week 7 I kind of had a plan of what I was going to do, but then I got kind of ill. I won't say what it was, but it did involve going to the toilet a lot, and so I was quite ill. And that's, you might say, oh well, okay, that's a reasonable excuse for not doing your streak on week 7, and I sort of believe that, and I told myself that what I would do is that in week 8 I would do 3 times the amount of time that I would normally do, to sort of buy back at a premium the missing week 7. But then I just couldn't motivate myself to do that either, and I had no excuse because I had time and I wasn't I was fully recovered, fully well. And so this has prompted a certain amount of soul searching, me thinking, what actually happened there? Because isn't a hobby streak supposed to motivate me? And yet somehow it didn't do that. Why was I not motivated to save my streak? Even though, I'm posting this to the YouTube, so I'm potentially embarrassing myself by failing the streak quite early. But so I am thinking about this, and I realised a few things. Like, we are donkeys, right? We are all intelligent donkeys, and a smart donkey, a clever donkey, does not do activities unless they need to. That's the essence of laziness, Darwinian laziness. And so the thing is, but of course we don't just sit there and sun ourselves. Even donkeys don't do that. The donkey will move and do things, but it has to be motivated. And there's basically all motivations come down to 2 types, broad types. One is pain-based, fear-based. That is the stick, right? You are worried about, you don't like pain. You're hungry, so you eat, right? And that's kind of thing. So and the other kind of motivational thing is pleasure. It's the buzz you get from eating nice food, for example. So and I think we're all wired. Everyone will respond to these two different motivational types, right? But I think we're all wired a little bit different. And some of us respond better to a pleasure-based, a carrot-based motivator, and some of us are better motivated by fear or pain, right? We just moved a bit more strongly that way. And in a way, so if you classify what is a hobby streak, which lever does it push? Does a hobby streak push? Is it the pleasure button, or is it the pain button? And I think actually it's mostly pain based, isn't it? Because with your hobby streak, you're basically making a deadline, a contract with yourself, and if you fail it, there is some unpleasant consequence, which is being embarrassed in front of the world, that sort of thing, or just feeling that you let yourself down, yeah, that you are not good. So it's a fear-based or pain-based motivator, the hobby streak. That's what it's working on. But I'm not really that. I've never been a kind of person who feels negative emotions very strongly. I've always been quite reckless. You might even say brave, to put a more positive spin on the word reckless. I don't feel fear very much. I don't feel motivated by pain as much as perhaps some people. Like, I know the best person I know in the world is probably my wife, and I know her very intimately for the past 21 years. I probably don't know anyone as well as I know her, and she's kind of the opposite to me. She is more, what the technical term is, neurotic. She's a neurotic person. She is very motivated by fear and pain and things like this. She will work really hard to not embarrass herself, for example. Whereas I don't care about being embarrassed. But I am much more driven by pleasure. I am a very much pleasure-orientated person. So I think this is why the hobby streak is starting to become a problem, is because it doesn't motivate me in the right way. It plays upon fear and pain, or rather embarrassment. But embarrassment, if you think about it, is a kind of fear, pain, isn't it? It's motivating me in a negative way, and that just doesn't work that well on me. That's just my personality type. So I don't know if you know any psychology or like social stuff like that. Psychology it is. Yeah, so there is this idea in psychology that there are 5 different personality traits that you can be high or low on. And I am quite high on extroversion, which is to do with risk-taking and being orientated towards pleasure. And whereas my wife, for example, is more neurotic, so she doesn't really feel pleasure very strongly. She doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she's not tempted by these sort of things so much. But she's very, 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 very motivated by fear of failing, or fear of looking bad, this kind of thing. So a hobby streak probably would work for her, right? I think it would work for her, because she'd be like, well, I've decided to do this, and if I don't do this, everyone will see I'm not very good at what I can't do what I say I will do, and I'll be embarrassed. And that would work on her. It would work on her, but it doesn't work on me that well. And because it makes even to extent it's anti-motivational for me, because now if there is a stick, then it becomes a chore and an obligation, and I feel less pleasure. Do you know? See, what I'm moved by is pleasure. What motivates me is pleasure, fun, things like that. Getting a buzz. A hobby streak makes it into a job. It makes it into a job for which does not pay. There is only this threat of being embarrassed if you fail the streak. That's all a hobby streak really offers me. And so in the long run, if you had seen some of my earlier videos, it was already starting to happen where I would leave everything to the last minute, because my donkey brain had realized that because I was doing a week streak, not a daily streak, I could put off doing the job, the chore, right to the last minute, and then just blitz it. But it's and now I've failed. I've realised why I failed, why it just doesn't work for me. I just don't respond to pain. I just don't respond to that kind of emotion, that emotional pressure. It's a motivational thing. I just don't. It just doesn't work for my personality. I'm a pleasure-driven person, so I need to completely rethink how to motivate myself to do paint all my models. And I do want to paint them. I do. I bought all this exactly because I'm into fun. I love it, and I want to paint them. So I've got to work, but I've got to work with my brain as it is. What works for another person, it doesn't work for me. I'm just not driven by pain and embarrassment and things like that. Would I be a YouTuber even if I was? Because, it's pretty. You have to be a bit reckless to do it, a bit mad, bit unafraid to embarrass yourself, kind of thing, to do this as a hobby / job, whatever it's going to be. So so I've got the war. What I want to say is the war on hobby piles is still on, just because the streak is dead, and I won't be attempting another one because, as I say, I've realised it's not the right way to motivate myself. The war on hobby piles is still on. I am still declaring war, but we are going to have to find a very different way to motivate myself, and I'm going to have a think about that. But one thing's for sure, it's got to work on my pleasure. My lust for pleasure, right? Not my fear of failure or being embarrassed or whatever. I just don't think that just doesn't motivate me. It just doesn't. Yeah. So I'm not 100% sad it's ended. Actually, I feel relieved that this hobby streak commitment has ended, because it was actually anti-motivational in the end. It was making me feel like, oh God, I've got to do my hobby work, because otherwise otherwise my streak will be over, and I won't be able to make a video for the YouTube, and all my viewers will think I'm a loser and all this kind of thing. It's anti-motivational at that point. Yes. So I think so. If there's something I want to share with you, is if you're finding yourself in a similar situation where you need to motivate yourself to do things, or there is something you want to do, you have a goal you're trying to get towards, but for some reason or other you're not maybe doing as much as you'd like to be doing, as you intended to be doing, then you've got a motivational issue. And I think the really fundamental thing to get sorted in your head is, do carrots, which works better on you, carrots or sticks? Because obviously you can always use both, right? Sometimes you can do both, but I think almost all of us either shake out as either more carrot or more stick. And I've realised, self-discovery moment here, I've realised I am a carrot person, and other people perhaps are stick people. And if you're a stick person, I think maybe a hobby streak might work, because if you analyse a hobby streak, it is basically playing on fear and pain and embarrassment as your motivational triggers, as the things to get you moving, whereas something else maybe is a bit more, something else which plays on pleasure would perhaps work on someone else who's more carrot orientated. I'm a carrot person. I need to be baited, you need to offer me a buzz, a payoff, a reward, a positive thing that I want in order to get me to do things. That's just how I am. So and I have to think about that. I'm gonna have to think about, well, what can I do instead of a hobby streak to hit that pleasure thing. So just a few thoughts on that, just put myself on the spot. What might that look like? It could be some kind of a reward for doing things, or perhaps a visualization thing. Perhaps if I find myself with time to do some hobby work, but I'd rather just sit and be lazy instead of painting or building or whatever. I need to perhaps do a visualization, just visualize myself glorying at a really well painted model, and or perhaps I try to imagine myself at a tournament with a beautifully painted army, and all my competitors are like, wow, you painted really good. See, something like that to create a positive thing to pull me forward, you know, a positive, pleasure-y type incentive. It's all about incentives, isn't it? That's what it is. There are incentives. There are pain incentives which push you, and there are pleasure incentives which pull you. And I'm a person who needs to be pulled, not a person who needs to be pushed. I get a bit resentful actually if I'm pushed. So that's kind of, so this is, it's not an apology to explain why to you, my delightful viewers who have perhaps been, you know, watching my playlist, the War on Hobby Piles, and sort of rooting for me to get my pile of shame. It's not an apology. I'm not apologising. It was a mistake to do to motivate myself in this way, but it was a learning experience, because I've learned maybe that's not the best way that works for me, and that's not to knock it. I just emphasise that if you are, you know, a bit more responsive to sticks, if you found that, if you found, like, in your life that sort of the threat of failure or being embarrassed or something like that actually does motivate you, deadlines motivate you, then you know, a hobby streak probably will work really nicely for you, because it does work for a lot of people. I mean, it does. Just maybe it's not the best thing for me. I need to be baited. I need to be baited into doing things. So, yeah. Where am I going with this now? Oh, so yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about different ways to do it, to you know, get myself motivated to do it. But I'm gonna quite happy to take a little bit of a break and just sort of reorientate my brain towards doing it a bit later. And I suppose there is another aspect in that on my channel I do tend to get more views from videos about video games, not so much about Warhammer. So just from a point of view of growing my channel, it might make more sense to try to do more video game videos, because just because they just seem to get more views. That's all. And I haven't got very many of those videos on my channel, but they are the best ones, the ones that get the most views. Whereas my Warhammer modelling type stuff, not so much. And of course that might change in the future, but that's it. So that's a little bit that's an update. And so RIP my hobby streak. I didn't go very far. I guess we did 6 weeks, and of course being a week streak means it's not really equivalent to a daily streak. But if it was equivalent to a daily streak, then 6 weeks is equivalent to 6 times 7. Oh God, what is 6 times 7? 42. 42 days. So it might be, what I did achieve was only equivalent to about 42 days, which isn't, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, is that all, mate? Is that all, mate? Yeah, I know, it's not long. But it was kind of productive. I did get things done. I just feel like if it's going to be sustainable, it's going to have to work on my carrot receptors in my donkey brain, and not on the stick receptors in my donkey brain, because one is definitely larger than the other. Okay? So that's basically all I want to say, and bye for now.